Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition is Ninja Gaiden 3, part of the Ninja Gaiden Trilogy for the Super Nintendo, brought to us by Tecmo. The Ninja Gaiden Trilogy is an enhanced version of the original 3 Ninja Gaiden games on the NES. They have slightly touched up graphics, changed up music, as well as they have a few extra problems, including not responsive controls that actually make these versions even more difficult than the original ones to beat. After selecting Ninja Gaiden 3, the Ancient Ship of Doom, we go right into the opening cutscene before we get to the main menu. Once we're at the main menu, we're going to press start and we're going to drop right into the very first level of the game. Now, Ninja Gaiden 3 had some changes from Ninja Gaiden 1 2. Most notably, right away, you'll notice that you can actually grab a hold of the bars and actually kind of shimmy across them like handlebars. Also, a little bit less noticeable are the fact that when you get knocked back, it's not quite as far as in 1 and 2, as well as you fall a little bit slower, allowing you to grab onto walls a little bit easier. Controlling Ryu is pretty much the same as Ninja Gaiden 1 2, he has the kind of same weight and momentum to his jumps, and it doesn't take long if you played those games to get right into this one. Originally, Ninja Gaiden 3 was considered the most difficult of the NES trilogy, mostly due to the fact that enemies were programmed to do more damage than the Japanese version of the game, as well as they took out the password system in the North American version. But thankfully, they went with the Japanese version of the game pretty much when making the trilogy version. Now here we have the first boss of the game. We're going to run up really close to him and deliver a few attacks. We're then going to jump over the flames that he puts onto the ground. You can time it nicely where you'll be able to attack him as you're jumping, and then deliver an attack before immediately jumping again to get over the next flame. You'll also notice the power-ups have been changed up a bit. You have a few new ones that have been added to this game. They got rid of the ninja clone ability, so you can't kind of cheese certain bosses or situations with that. But they do have the new ability to add some power to your sword. You saw me grab it in level 1, and there's at least one power-up for it in every one of the stages. And if you're able to get it, you're able to hit a little bit of a farther distance. The other gameplay mechanics, including using the ninja scrolls and grabbing the power-ups for it, are pretty much the same. The game does have a relatively strict time limit, though, that you'll have to keep an eye out for. This mostly only comes into play, especially really late in the game. The final level in particular is really difficult to get through and beat all the bosses without running out of time. During this segment here, it can be pretty annoying with all these little spike balls kind of chasing you as you make your way down, but the next room is much more annoying, as it's actually an auto-scrolling area, and you have a big thing of lava that's slowly starting to fill up the room. Be careful when climbing up. A lot of times you'll be able to see the platform, but the enemies that are going to be on it haven't quite spawned yet, so don't attempt to make any jumps until you're for sure that no enemy is going to be on there, or you'll be able to get around whatever enemy is on there. Having these scrolling sections in Ninja Gaiden 3 definitely added an extra little bit of challenge. Most enemies, just like with Ninja Gaiden 1 or 2, will die in pretty much a single hit. Ninja Gaiden 3 in particular loves, though, throwing a big group of enemies at you in very tight situations, as we'll see when we get a little bit farther in. Finally, we do make it up to the top of this area and can exit out. Now, during this screen, you have those weird balls that kind of fly out of the lava and explode into a spread shot that we saw in Ninja Gaiden 2, and they're just as annoying here. For the boss of stage number 2, this guy kind of moves around in a figure 8 pattern. He will throw some projectiles down straight at you. When he does make his kind of arcs downwards, you're able to hit multiple times in a row, which will slow him up, allowing you to hit him even more times in a row. Pretty simple boss overall, but a little bit more difficult than level 1s. As we make it into stage number 3, this level has us going from right to left instead of left to right to start us off. A little bit ways in, these fish will start appearing, and they're one of the more annoying enemies in this section. There's a lot of open gaps, as you can see. If you fall into the water, it is instant death, so these fish are very good at knocking you off of platforms and making sure that you end up getting a nice watery death. These platforms move pretty slowly. When you're jumping between them, be careful. The fish will spawn from time to time trying to attack you. I recommend having one of the scroll weapons ready, like these fires, so you can shoot down into the water to take them out. If you don't have that, though, you have to kind of get to one of the edges of the platform and just get lucky that if you do get hit, you don't get knocked off the platform altogether. In the next section, you have all these waterfalls that are raining down. They'll which push and pull you in whatever direction. There's a ton of little spike ball enemies that are really difficult to hit with your sword normally. They're just everywhere, so I try to get through that area as quick as I can. The whole waterfall mechanic continues into the next room. You have a bunch of these running enemies and then these really annoying flying bug type guys. These are in a lot of the levels, and they're probably one of the most annoying enemies in the game. When we make it into this room, we're going to run to the left side and start climbing up. We're going to take out the enemy before then jumping onto this platform. You'll have these little pods that shoot out a few different projectiles that roll across the ground, so be careful of those. Here we're going to climb up the right wall and go up pretty far before being able to then jump off of it near the very end here before getting to the last platform and exiting out the door. Here in the next segment, you have some pretty small platforms you're going to have to jump between. The whole waterfall thing's going, and I really hate these flying bug guys, and even the running annoying guys are also a pain. Now, the boss for Stage 3 is pretty much a rematch of the same demon-type boss we've fought multiple times in the Ninja Gaiden series. You can only attack one of them, and as they bounce around, it can be difficult to get to just that one, especially if he's on the fountain. So try to take him out as quick as you can. As we begin level number 4, a little bit ways in, you'll have one of these kind of cart things that are going back and forth. There's a bunch of these throughout, and you can kind of jump on top of them, and of course, as you can see, also grab the bottom of them, and you'll have to use them to get around. Wait a few moments for one of them to come over to you. There's a lot of these flying enemies. Thankfully, we'll be able to avoid a lot of them. You can jump up here and hit the extra life if you want to grab that. Be careful right here. As soon as you jump up, there's going to be 2 of the giant flying bug guys. I recommend getting to the platform as quickly as you can so that you can try to take them both out. Thankfully, that area, though, is done. But the next section has all of these giant things of spikes that will pop out, and then a few moments later will retract, and you have to get through the whole area while dealing with them. Thankfully, though, the spikes don't do a whole lot of damage to you, well, at least not in this version of the game. So because of that, you're able to kind of get hit and take a few chances when running through as quickly as you can. That's pretty much what you're going to be doing through most of this level. As you can see, we make it to the next section where we're going to be climbing up now, but we still have to be dealing with these spikes. The purple ships are a pretty annoying enemy. They have projectiles they fire out from the top and bottoms of them, as well as they kind of go really slow and then will speed up really quickly, so it's a little bit difficult sometimes to get the jump on them. The next room is pretty much more of the same that we've been dealing with. More spikes popping up, and there's a bunch of these chains that have these little slime creatures on them, so be careful when jumping up on a few of them. Right after that though, we do have the next boss. He will pop out of the ground and he slowly starts to walk. We're going to use the scroll item to fire up at him to do a lot of damage, and then attack him in the back before he ends up falling off the platform, eventually retreating. Now, when he gets underground and starts firing out all these fireballs, we're going to duck in the corner to avoid all of them. We will end up getting hit when he pops out of the ground, though, as that's pretty hard to avoid while we're ducking there. But still, we got the immediate jump on him, can deliver the rest of the attacks we need, and move on to the next level. As we begin stage number 5, we have a nice rain effect going on in the background. A few enemies are going to start running towards us. This first area, pretty quick. We're just going to kind of get to this platform fast and make sure that we don't end up getting knocked off. Now the next room, though, is really essential that you move fast. We're going to climb up, then move to this first moving platform right above the entrance. Then you have these last two that you got to move between quickly and then get to the door. The reason why you want to move really fast is, as you can see, the room starts to fill up very fast with a whole bunch of those purple ship enemies that can be difficult to deal with. So you just get through there as fast as you can, and the faster you move, the less of them you should have to deal with. The room right after that is pretty similar to the first room, but a little bit more difficult with a couple more platforms that you'll have to hang from. After that, we get to head inside, and we have a bunch of kind of like robotic structure kind of going on inside of this place. You have a few turrets shooting some lasers, and these really annoying bouncing guys, they end up getting into certain areas and hitting you and knocking you way off of a platform that you were trying to get up. This whole little area is a little bit of a maze. You kind of gotta climb up, watch out for these things attached to the walls, and work your way inside, and then you're able to climb up the last portion here to get up to this platform. The whole next room, though, is going to be a giant bridge that will slowly start to fall apart as we run across it. You only have a few seconds after stepping on a spot before it ends up disintegrating and you won't be able to use it. Thankfully, there is a flame shield that you'll be able to grab, and you can use that, and I do recommend it so you can easily run through that bridge segment, especially the end of it. If at this point you're running a little bit low on health, you can step into this spot here and grab this potion so you can refill all of your health as we're getting near the end of the stage. Unfortunately, you can't jump all the way up there through the platform, though it kinda looks like you can. Watch out for a couple more of those things on the walls, and then moving into the next room. Once in here, you have a flying guy that will start attacking you, and there's a few of those. I'm going to use the flame shield to help me out, destroying a lot of the enemies as I run through a big portion of this room. Right after that, though, is the boss encounter, but we have a cutscene right before it. Now this boss is pretty large and intimidating, but he has a pretty easy pattern. He starts off by jumping a couple of times, throwing these throwing star-like objects across the room, which you can easily jump over. After throwing 2 of them though, when he ends up landing, he's immediately going to go into his flipping motion. My strat is to get ahead of him as he does the flip. This way I land right in front of him, I'm able to hit him, and then when he flips again, he'll land right in front of me on the opposite side where I'm able to deliver a couple of hits and be ready to dodge the 3-shot projectile he does as he's landing. After a pretty lengthy cutscene, we're dropped into this crystal cave-like area, and it's pretty much an ice cave. You'll be slipping and sliding on all of the platforms, trying to make sure you have your traction as you're jumping from area to area. There is a ton, an absolute ton of enemies. So a lot of times I'm just trying to kind of bulldoze my way through and get into the next area as quick as I can. In this room, we're going to climb up the big center area here. You just kind of keep on climbing, jumping up. Sometimes it may be difficult to see the enemy if they're right above you on the platform. You may end up getting hit a time or two as we drop down the last side and move into the next room. Here we have more just scrolling to the right, but we have to watch out for a couple of these flying guys, big giant pits, and the icy platforms are still very much a nuisance to try to get over. This whole area is really difficult with the ice platforms. There's a lot of stuff flying at you, a lot of enemies in general. If you have any of the ninja scroll abilities that can really help you out, especially in some of the trickier platform spots. In the next room, you'll start being pulled down into this weird intestinal looking stuff that's all over the place, and if you go too far into it, you will end up dying. And this goes for the next room with it as well in the boss fight. Thankfully, you don't get pulled into the walls when climbing up and down them, just on the individual platforms themselves. When we finally make it through that room, we now have this big long hallway filled with more of the stuff and other regular pits that we have to deal with as well. Be sure to grab the sword power-up so that we can take down a few of the enemies a little easier. Some of these platforms, the enemies take up a lot of it as we're jumping between them. When you make it over here, you'll have a whole bunch of enemies fall down from the ceiling, but thankfully that is the end of the place. And then we have a small cutscene before we end up making it to the next boss fight. As the battle begins, the enemy will start off by throwing out a projectile and then running across the room, dashing into the wall, causing a bunch of rocks to fall from the ceiling. I though immediately climb up the left wall so I can jump over them and then start attacking them in the back. It's a pretty simple pattern. The rocks are random though, so you're going to get hit sometimes, but just keep slashing at him and he'll go down after a few cycles. Now, Stage 7 is the final level of the game. As we begin, we're going to be trying to get pushed back by the wind as we're on this giant vehicle. We'll have to climb on a few of these platforms. There's plenty of flying enemies that are going to try to knock you off, so try to get onto the more solid platform instead of just hanging on some of the other ones. Wait for this guy to kind of jump towards you. If you're able to kind of get just the one guy, take him out first, then move a little bit closer to get that one flying guy to spawn. It's difficult to do it that way. If you get both of them to spawn, it's a lot more difficult to try to get over that particular jump. In here, we're going to start climbing up. Be careful, of course, of the electricity that's on a few of the spots. Some of it is a little bit more difficult to jump over than others. In the next room, you have a bunch more of these hanging platforms, but as you can see, you have these electronic field things set up so that you can't jump up at certain points, so you will have to kind of move your hands across a few of the areas in order to get past. Now here we have one set up with these moving platforms. This spot can be a bit difficult to kind of get up. When you go to the left here, get this guy to spawn and take him out, and then when it comes back, thankfully, he won't end up respawning. So that we're able to kind of get past that. That guy can be a real nuisance if you try to get past him without doing that. Now in the next room, we have more of the electronic walls set up so you can't climb up them, so you have to take up the moving platforms and just slowly work your way up them. You have the really annoying flying bug guys that are going to just try to come in from both sides, and if they end up hitting you, they're probably going to knock you all the way back down to the very bottom of this area. As you can see, a little bit of a glitch there. I got hit even though I was going through the door, so I didn't take damage till I went through, which is kind of funny. Be careful here before jumping this platform because of a couple of jumping guys and some of the missiles and all going on. They can knock you back into the pit. Climb up, be sure to grab the health. You'll probably be pretty low at this point. It's a pretty rough level up to this point. We want to make sure that we have as much health as we can going into the final couple of areas. Now in here we have the spikes popping out of the walls. Wait a few moments to get them to retract before climbing up the rest of the bit here. Be careful, make sure you're able to grab the sword power-up before heading all the way back up. Unfortunately, I forgot to grab it on my first time on the platform, so I had to quickly get down there and grab it. Finish up the area, a lot of the purple flying machines, which are a bit annoying. We're going to make it to that next room. There's a big giant pit. Wait for these flying guys to kind of get away from you just enough so that you're able to kind of get moving. As you can see, there are breakable platforms, and they don't last too long, so you only have a few moments to quickly get off of them. Really kind of an extreme gauntlet here at the end of the game, and I recommend using the power-up, like I have the Ninja Scroll, to kind of help you get through that. Now, in the next room, it's more of the spikes flying in and out of the walls. You can, of course, climb up slowly and take your time, but you really have to rush things as we're getting near the end of the level, mostly due to the final boss. But also, with all those enemies in the room, you're probably going to take a lot of damage before you're able to get up anyway. Now, in this final set of corridors that we have to get through, a few of the purple machines are going to fill in. We're able to take out one guy and kind of get through quickly. Use our ninja art again to kind of help us get through. We won't have much for the end, but that really is okay. We have some pretty good strategies for most of the boss here. Now for the first form of the boss, I'm going to start off by using my ninja art ability to hit him in the air. This will freeze him just over the platform so I can get up there and start delivering attacks. As you can see, when you deliver a hit to him, that's what freezes him, but when you freeze him, he'll start throwing lightning everywhere, which can be difficult to dodge. So you kind of want to give him in strategic places so you can deliver the most amount of hits, so even if you end up getting hit by lightning, you're still able to deliver quite a bit of hits to him. Keep in mind, your health bar is not going to regenerate between the forms of the boss. Now for the second form of the boss, I'm going to immediately jump onto this platform, and I can kind of get between these things that he's pulling in. The one on the right side is a lot easier to dodge as we can get around it, as it'll fire out and immediately crash into the wall. The one on the left side that we're attacking from, though, is a little bit harder to kind of trick. You have to do kind of a hard, harsh turn in order to kind of get it to fly in one of the directions to hopefully either hit the floor or hit the wall before it ends up running into you. For the final boss, you have to actually attack the mask off of it first, similar to the other Ninja Gaiden final bosses, or final forms at least. And once we get rid of that, we can hit that core. He has a few different moves. He has a big wave-like move he's able to throw out. He has these little lasers that will kind of go in diagonal directions and bounce around the room. Once you get rid of the mask, though, he starts firing down with cannons on the left and right side. If you stay about under the face where the face would be for the robots and just move underneath of that back and forth, the two cannons most of the time will end up missing you. There is the occasion where they will be able to hit you, but a lot of times they'll end up missing you and you'll be able to jump up and deliver direct attacks to the core. Once it's defeated, though, you get to sit back and enjoy the ending to Ninja Gaiden 3. So there you have it, guys, Ninja Gaiden 3, the third of the Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. I hope you enjoyed watching me play through all three of these games as part of this trilogy. It's not as good of a playing experience as the NES original games, with the exception of Ninja Gaiden 3 being a little easier, though if you can get a Famicom version of Ninja Gaiden 3, which actually isn't too difficult to do, if you're able to do that, you'll have a much easier time playing it, and you have the responsive controls that this version ends up lacking. But with that, guys, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.